Have you ever noticed how loudly we chase connection and how quietly we trade away our freedom to keep it? Here is the claim I want you to test against your own life. Solitude, practiced deliberately, forges a kind of strength that makes love better, not smaller, and the person who can stand alone without bitterness is the only one who can stand with another without fear. By the end of this, you'll have a calm, repeatable way to turn being single into a training ground for agency. And you'll learn the one question to ask at midnight that exposes whether a relationship will enlarge your life or hollow it out. We will come back to that question later. Keep it in the corner of your mind like a compass wrapped in cloth. This is educational philosophy, not therapy or legal counsel. I'm not your doctor, lawyer, or private advisor. What follows is a set of tools and perspectives. You are responsible for your choices. Consult qualified people when your situation demands it. What I can offer is clarity, discipline, and a path you can walk today. Why does this matter now? Because the modern world has turned attention into a commodity and loneliness into a market. Your uncertainty is profitable to someone. Whole platforms are designed to keep you needing the next ping, the next approval, the next presence in your bed or your inbox. It's fashionable to call that love, but often it is a disguised avoidance of silence. Ancient Stoics would have recognized the pattern immediately. We confuse externals with the inner life, and in that confusion, we become easy to move, easy to buy, easy to steer. The point is not to demonize relationships. The point is to restore sovereignty so that if you choose love, it is a gift and not a bribe to your own anxiety. A common misconception about Stoicism is that it's anti-romance or anti-feeling, a cult of emotional frost. That misses the center of the practice. The Stoics were not trying to amputate emotion, they aimed to govern it. They honored roles, friend, citizen, partner, parent. They prized justice and cosmopolitan concern. The problem is not attachment per se. The problem is attachment that hijacks choice. If you ever found yourself bending your schedule, your values, even your speech, just to keep something from leaving, you felt the difference between love and dependency. Stoicism draws that boundary with surgical clarity. Your judgments and choices are yours. Other people's reactions, bodies, and fortunes are not. Value the relationship, yes, but never more than your capacity to judge rightly and act with integrity. Start with first principles. The dichotomy of control is as plain as gravity. Some things are up to you, your judgments, your intentions, your actions, and some are not. Other people's feelings, your reputation, your past, and a good share of your future. Train your attention to live where it can work. Events arrive. You add the meaning. That gap, the flicker between what happened and what you call it, is the doorway to freedom. The ancient word for the faculty that chooses is proheresis. I'll use a simpler term, the inner hand. You extend it to grasp what is yours to hold. You withdraw it from what is not. When you lose that distinction, you will bargain away your mornings, your focus, and eventually your self-respect for a smile, a text, a body beside you that cannot carry your soul for you. To make these principles breathe, let me braid in 3 stories. They are composites, privacy safe, but true to life's pulses. The first is a preventable downfall, the kind that feels inevitable until you name its hinges. The second is a late awakening, a lesson arrived after needless detours. The third is a believable transformation, the sort that does not require miracles, only steady practice. He had a reputation for being unbreakable. Long hours, precise work, gym at dawn, a kind of clipped kindness that made him reliable in a crisis. Then a winter arrived that came with a human face. She was sun after a long storm, or so he told himself. The first red flags were polite. She needed him to answer immediately, to cancel a weekend plan for us, to adjust a boundary because that's what commitment means. He obliged 1 degree at a time because he was tired of the cold and because he made a private bargain. If I give enough, the unease will fade. It did not. What he had called loyalty was often a fear of conflict. What he called love was relief from silence. Months later, his work was a step slower, his mornings invaded by last night's arguments, and a subtle shame had set up house in his chest. Stoically speaking, he had misclassified externals as essentials. He outsourced his inner hand to a person he couldn't control. The downfall wasn't dramatic. It was managerial. His schedule began answering to someone else's moods. His self-talk adopted her verdicts. His sense of the good was negotiated at 2 in the morning by 2 exhausted people. It took a public humiliation, a scene at a work function, a needless cruelty said loudly, for him to wake up. That day, he thought he had been betrayed, but the deeper betrayal was his own, of his priorities and his clarity. And the hinge on which it turned was tiny. He had lost track of what was his to govern. A delayed awakening came to a woman whose gift was charm. She didn't mean to. She had learned as a girl that if you can read a room, you can survive it. She could match a tone, offer a look, get approval like a magician pulls a coin from behind an ear. She dated often, never alone for long. She told herself she liked companionship. In truth, she was allergic to silence. Then she tried a 30-day experiment. No dating apps, no flirty messages, no new entanglements, and every evening, a 15-minute sit in honest quiet. No music, no scrolling, just breath and thought. The first nights were shrill. Her mind played every scene where she had been overlooked, every argument rehearsed, every line of praise reread like scripture. Around night 12, something else surfaced, a calm that felt like a lake in winter. Still strong, not exciting, but reliable. She started hearing her actual preferences. What time she wanted to wake without being nudged, what work mattered when she wasn't performing, what clothes she wore when there was no one to impress. The awakening wasn't fireworks, it was inventory. She discovered that most of her yes had been a performance she gave to avoid disappointing anyone. The discipline of stillness revealed a truth she had been too busy to learn. You can't love another without becoming legible to yourself. You do not need to become simple, only coherent. The transformation is unromantic in the best way. He began with a small oath. Mornings belong to me. Before touching a phone, he would touch reality. Cold water, a floor under his feet, air moving in and out of his chest. He called it the forge 1 hour. Before, the world had a chance to vote on his value. 10 minutes to review yesterday. What did I control? What did I chase? 20 minutes of reading that asked him to think. 20 minutes of exercise to remind him he had a body with a job, and 10 minutes to set intentions in 1 sentence each. Today, I will do what is mine with excellence. Today, I will not traffic in resentment. Today, I will leave the rest. He practiced voluntary discomfort like a craftsman sharpens a blade. cold showers, no sugar on weekdays, walking when driving was easy, carrying a heavy bag up the stairs instead of the elevator. None of this was a stunt. It was an argument with himself, demonstrated physically. I can endure what is inconvenient in service of what is good. Months later, he began dating again. He approached it as a builder approaches a site. Boundaries were stated early. He refused to apologize for having a schedule and a mission. He watched for whether no was respected without punishment. When conflict arrived, he searched for his part first and kept his language in the realm he could govern. I saw, I felt, I did, I intend. From the outside, he looked less romantic. From the inside, he felt less afraid. He had learned how not to sell his mornings. Let's ground this in plain English before adding nuance. Being single is not a verdict on your worth. It's an opportunity to practice power where it matters, on your judgments, your routines, your promises, your body, your craft. You can choose to stop pouring hours into arguments you can't control and pour them instead into skills and strength that no one can repossess. You can make a home inside your own conscience so that when you do invite someone in, you are not offering them an empty room. You can stop negotiating your basic standards to avoid the momentary pain of saying no. These are not grand gestures. They are small, boring repetitions that turn into a kind of quiet momentum. The Stoics would tell you to begin with what you can do today. Write down what you actually control, act there, and let the rest go. The payoff is not emotional anesthesia. It is steadiness. Now, the nuance. Not all solitude is noble. Isolation can harden people into brittle self-sufficiency that confuses walls for wisdom. Stoicism is not a license to refuse intimacy or to make a policy of detachment. It asks you to love your fate, to show up for your roles with excellence, and to prefer what is good over what is comfortable. The aim isn't independence as an idol. It's independence as a way to love without clinging. There are limits to any ideal. Some people carry trauma that complicates quiet. Some carry responsibilities that compress their mornings. Some cultures place heavy weight on partnership, and navigating that requires diplomacy as well as conviction. Stoic clarity does not absolve you from compassion or from adjusting in good faith. It insists that your first duty is to your character, not to your cravings. It also insists that justice matters. Your choices ripple into a world where other people exist, and your freedom is never permission to exploit theirs. Let's sharpen the edge by glancing at power dynamics without romantic fog. The world runs on incentives. Offices have politics. Families have hierarchies. Cities have unwritten codes. Kindness without boundaries becomes a resource for predators. Boundaries without kindness become a fortress that starves its defenders. The Stoic answer is not naivete, it's competence. When you are single, you can practice saying no cleanly, not to punish, but to prune. You can learn to walk away from a conversation when the terms are manipulative. You can notice who respects a limit stated softly and who needs theater to hear it. The ancient writers would not have been scandalized by this. They were adults who lived in empires. They knew that virtue needs prudence like a general needs maps. If a person's attention is the coin of your realm, ask what they spend it on: building, blaming, or buying approval. Do not confuse intensity for intention. There is a motif I want to hand you: the fortress and the bridge. Your inner life should be built like a fortress, well-provisioned, defended by habit, hard to storm in a day. But a fortress without gates is a tomb. The bridge is your openness to others, your willingness to be moved by beauty and to be corrected by those who love you. During singleness, you fortify the fortress. Sleep, physical strength, financial prudence, craft discipline, daily reading, trusted friendships. You repair the bridge by learning to speak plainly, to apologize without self-erasure, to invite feedback while reserving judgment where it belongs. When you meet someone, you walk your guest across a bridge to a fortress worth entering. If they try to move in with a wrecking ball, you've learned to escort them back across the bridge and close the gate without burning it down. How does this translate into the day? Keep the models human. If you are used to waking to a phone, wake to your breath instead. Sit at the edge of your bed and name what the day cannot take from you: your effort, your honesty, your choice to do the next right thing. This is not a pep talk. It is a statement of jurisdiction. Before the world makes a withdrawal, make a deposit. Rid something older than you are. Lift something heavy enough to remind you that discomfort is not a signal of danger. Write one sentence that tells your day where to aim. Then go about your business. In the evening, conduct a short audit. Where did you run outside your jurisdiction? Where did you do what was yours? What will you try differently tomorrow? That tiny loop, executed for months, will change your posture more reliably than any speech you give yourself after midnight. The dichotomy of control can feel abstract until you pay attention to your language. Notice how often we smuggle in demands. She made me angry. He wasted my time. They ruined my day. Anger can be appropriate, but the Stoic asks you to correct the grammar of your agency. She acted, I judged, I responded. He asked, I agreed, I regretted agreeing. They tried, I declined, they escalated. That grammar does not make you passive. It clarifies where you can act next. If you keep granting others authorship over your states, your inner hand atrophies. When you speak in precise agency, your options multiply. You can renegotiate, you can leave, you can escalate calmly, you can ignore. In relationships, this language prevents blame from drowning you both. It anchors the conversation in what can actually be altered. Let's return to the woman who practiced the month of quiet. Her awakening taught her a hard limit. She had been renting out her mornings to the ghosts of other people's opinions. On day 20, she wrote a line on a card and kept it in her wallet. I do not trade my sovereignty for comfort. When she began dating after that, she treated silence as a teacher rather than a threat. If she sensed the old performance, saying yes to dodge discomfort, she would pause and breathe, not to manipulate the other person, but to listen to whether her no was a boundary or a fear. If it was fear, she leaned into it. If it was a boundary, she honored it. The difference is simple to state and hard to practice. Fear says, I don't want to be seen. Boundary says, I want to be seen correctly. One hides, the other defines. The Stoic preference is for definition. The man who did the forge discovered the usefulness of voluntary discomfort beyond his body. He practiced telling the truth when a polite lie would have won him points. He risked a weekend alone instead of a weekend performed. He chose to be thought overly serious by strangers rather than be unserious about his own mission. That brings a cost. You will lose some audiences. You will be mocked by people who have never built anything. That cost is a signal you're not for sale at every price. What he gained was worth more. He could look in a mirror and trust the man who looked back. When a relationship eventually found him, he brought trust with him as a dowry. Not the demand that she trust him blindly, but the fact that he had built habits that make trust reasonable: consistency, steadiness, willingness to submit to reality when he was wrong. Some of you are listening from the middle of a current relationship that feels like a tug of war between love and fear. Stoicism is not a ceremony for leaving. It is a ceremony for clarity. You may discover that you can remain and repair with fewer illusions. You may discover you have to walk away. What matters is that you do not outsource the decision to the other person's moods or to your own dread of being alone. Return to the inner hand. Decide what is yours: your standards, your speech, your schedule. State them calmly. Watch whether they are met with respect or with a demand for self-erasure. Then act. Power used cleanly does not scream. There is also the quiet danger of a Stoic costume, using the language of self-sufficiency to hide from vulnerability. The practice I'm urging is not coldness. It is warmth with a pilot light you control. It is the ability to hear criticism without instantly dissolving, to offer apology without becoming a doormat, to enjoy affection without being purchased by it. When you've trained alone to carry your own weight, you can accept help without panic and decline help without guilt. You will still get hurt. Life is generous with that. But hurt will not be chronic because you refuse to learn to stand. The ship in a storm does not eliminate the sea. It builds a keel. Here is where a brief Machiavellian aside clarifies rather than corrupts. We are embodied creatures inside systems with incentives and leverage. Don't pretend otherwise. If a partner punishes your boundaries with sulks, you're looking at a leverage play. If a colleague flatters you to extract unpaid labor, leverage again. The Stoic solution is not to declare yourself above strategy. It is to marry virtue to prudence. Make incentives honest. If you reward tantrums with attention, you have trained the storm to return. If you pay attention to calm negotiation, you train calm to return. This is as true in dating as in diplomacy. It is not cruelty to reinforce reality. It is respect for yourself and for the other person, who deserves to meet your real terms rather than your performances. I promised a midnight question that closes the loop we opened at the start. The question is simple and ruthless. If the person I love vanished tomorrow, would I look at my calendar and recognize my life? If your answer is no, if your mornings, your friendships, your body, your craft, your obligations to the world would collapse, you are not in love. You are in dependency. If the answer is yes, if grief would be real, but your path would remain, you have built a life that can host love without begging it to be your spine. Ask it at midnight, because that is when your justifications sleep and truth steals in barefoot. Ask it without cruelty, and then live so that when you ask again in a month, your answer is stronger. The practical steps are too small to be glamorous, which is their strength. Treat your day like an architect treats a site. Lay foundations, sleep with discipline, fuel your body with care, keep your finances clean enough to say no. Erect scaffolding, morning reflection, reading that makes you better, physical exertion that edges past comfort. Survey the structure each evening with a short walk through what you built. Invite a few trusted minds to test your beams. The whole point is not to hide behind walls, but to carry a structure with you that does not fall apart at the first knock on the door. There is a tenderness to all of this that might be easy to miss in the talk of fortresses and leverage. The tenderness is for your future self. You are building a place for them to live. You are refusing to sell their mornings for your relief tonight. You are preparing to offer them a set of memories where they stood up straight, told the truth more often than not, and loved people from a place that did not demand that those people fix them. When a worthy partner arrives, and they often do when we are busy being worth the effort, you will recognize them by how your boundaries relax without disappearing, by how your work continues without apology, by how your laughter does not sound like relief from dread, but like the sound a good tool makes when it fits perfectly into your hand. If you are hearing a hint of severity, good. The ancients were not playing a game. They taught that freedom begins at the level of judgment and extends outward to action. They were suspicious of ease that cost integrity and skeptical of any love that required you to forfeit your role as a moral agent. They also taught joy, the kind that comes when your inside and your outside rhyme, when you do what you say is good in small acts across many days. Singleness is fertile ground for that kind of coherency. It is also a mirror. Look into it without hating what you see. Correct what is yours to correct and carry on. As we come to a close, gather the thread in your own hands. You are not required to despise love to honor your sovereignty. You are invited to become someone who can host love without losing aim. The tools are modest, a morning hour that belongs to you, a sentence each day that sets your intention, a willingness to endure small discomforts to train courage, a vocabulary that returns agency to your side of the street, boundaries that are expressed early and enforced quietly, friendships that tell you the truth, a mission that gives shape to your days beyond romance. From that ground, you will either remain single with peace or enter partnership with strength. Both are victories because both are chosen, not begged. If you want a next chapter, explore negative visualization as a discipline. Imagine in detail the loss of what you cherish, not to wallow, but to practice gratitude and prepare the mind. Or study time management through a Stoic lens, where every calendar block is a value statement and every no is a respect for your finite days. For now, let the midnight question do its work. If they vanished, would you recognize your life? Build so that the answer is yes, and then choose love as a surplus of strength rather than a cure for fear. In that posture, whether you walk alone tonight or fold into the arms of someone worthy, you will not be half of anything. You will be whole, and wholeness is the one gift that multiplies when shared.